Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you are listening with our friends over at TorahAnytime.com or wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts, it's so exciting to have you along. And I was thinking that I've been talking about topics past couple of podcasts, things that interest me. And I had one that I wanted to talk about this week too. Because I have to tell you, my last one really elicited some quite a response. In fact, evidently, unintentionally, I made a lot of people feel guilty. And so they all felt like they had to write me and say, no, we really do appreciate you. Which was really not my intention. I was not fishing for compliments, but thank you. Anyway, I just was trying to make a point about when we go and ask people for help, that we should appreciate it. So I thought maybe for a little change of pace, I would just do some straightforward Torah, which I haven't done quite in a while. Now, one of the reasons for this is, as you may have noticed, that I usually gear when I speak on the podcast either to whatever moed is coming up, whatever holiday. I say holiday, although some of them are days of tragedy, but I try to put it towards that, or I try to speak on the parsha. And since, of course, we are in different places in Israel and in Chutz La'aretz, so I've been trying to avoid that, but I have tried to speak about themes that perhaps will apply to the general parshios of the Midbar in general. And that's what I want to do now. I want to speak about an interesting contrast that takes place in Sefer B'Midbar. Remember this from when you had to write an essay in high school, compare and contrast? Yeah, so we're going to do one of those now. Compare and contrast, yeah. There are two stories that are very similar. The first one was back in Parshas Beha'aloscha. Yeah. The people say, Oy, such a hard life we have. Zachrenu it's a doga shenocha Mitzrayim chinam. We forgot we remember the fish that we used to have in Egypt, kishuim, the cucumbers, avatichim, the melons, chotzir, b'tzolim, shumim. Yeah. So Creation is a chatzir. Rashi says creation, a kind of cress, kind of lettuce, yeah, and garlic and the onions. It's got to be pretty bad when you're sitting there pining for cucumbers, But we complain. All we have to eat is the mun, every single day mun. Taste whatever you want. It's kind of strange, by the way, that they would complain about it, but it didn't look like it. Sometimes things are supposed to look like it. They came out with a soda called Pepsi Clear. It tasted exactly like Pepsi, but it looked like water, and nobody wanted to drink it because it didn't look right. Didn't have the right look for it. Same thing happened when they came out with green ketchup, purple ketchup. Didn't look like ketchup. Things look like the way we expect them to look. Now, sometimes that's because that's the way they appear in nature. Tomatoes are red. You expect them to be red and not green, not purple. And of course, the Pepsi tree is black. You don't expect to see it clear. But we expect things to look like the way we look for them. Interestingly enough, people assume that bubblegum is pink. The default color for bubblegum, and in fact, there's a color called bubblegum pink. Yeah, and the reason is because the guy who invented bubblegum, the only food coloring he had in the factory at the time was pink. That's why he made it pink. So, that sort of set it into motion. But people expect things to look the way that they do, right? That's why in the New York area, I don't know about every place, but the New York area on March 17th, you can go and get bagels that are green bagels. And some people are put off by green bagels. That's not how they're supposed to look. Yeah. So sometimes you have a green bagel, but it's not really edible anymore, right? So you're just adding in food coloring. Anyway, and Rashi says HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to offer a defense of the man. V'aman kizera gadhu ve'eno ke'ena b'dolach, like crystal. Shoto am v'loktu v'tochenu b'rachayim odachu meducha ubishlu b'paror v'aso so ugos v'yatamu ketamu l'shad shemen. Honey and oil cakes, all sweet and yummy and delicious. Of course, it says you could bake it or you could fry it or you didn't do any of those things to it, says Rashi. It tasted like whatever you wanted. You want it to taste fried, taste fried. You want it to taste baked. It could taste like whatever you want. And the people are complaining about the man. Now, Bahaloischa is a fascinating parsha because it's a transitional parsha. Obviously, that's what the two upside down nunin do for you in Bamidbar. It separates the beginning of Bamidbar from the end of Bamidbar. And in fact, in coming up to it in those who learn Daf Yomi and Shabbos, that the smallest amount of aksav, a remnant of a sefer that you can rescue from a fire is 85 letters. Why? Because the space in between the two nunim is 85 letters. Vayihid ben Zohar wrote, it's 85 letters. And that teaches us that 85 letters is considered a sefer unto itself. So there are actually 7 books of the Torah. And those 2 psukim are its own little sefer. So you see that what leads to the downfall, you end up with the Masavim, you end up with the Meraglim, you end up with that whole generation dying out. They're complaining about the mud. That's the thing. Okay, so the whole generation dies out. And we're at the end of the 40 years. Right? Miriam dies, the rock that was the giant well rolls away. Moshe and Aaron have to bring it back. They hit the rock, they're speaking to the rock, and that of course sets into a whole chain of events. And it ends up now, at the end of the 40 years, what happens? They have to go around Eretz Edom. V'yidaber ha'am be'elokim u'b'Moshe. Lama elisanu mi'mitzrayim lamus b'midbar. Why'd you bring us out of Egypt to die in the desert? Ki ein lechem ve'ein mayim. There's no bread, there's no water. And we're sick of this man. And because they spoke out against the man, they got attacked with these fiery serpents. And so Moshe had to take a copper snake, and put it onto a pole and put it up, and everybody would look at it, was healed. That, parenthetically, is the symbol of the American Medical Association. If you ever look at that little staff with the snake around it, that's where it comes from. And there's and so they look at it and they get healed, and fine. 2 times they argue about the midbar. They complain about the mud. In the midbar, when they are about to go into Eretz Yisrael, had it not been for the Mazavim, which led to the Shem Zakanim, which led to Eldad and Medad, which led to Miriam speaking about Moshe and having to wait an extra week for her, and the Meraglim, had it not been for that, at the beginning of this story, it says they were 3 days into Eretz Yisrael. 3-day journey. That's how close they were. They would have been, they marched in. You're complaining about the mun, and you're never going to see a piece of mun again in your life. You're going into Eretz Yisrael. Now that you're about to go in, now is when you're fetching? how much longer do we have to use the money? I don't know, a day, 2 days, 3 days, all depends on how long it takes you to get over the border. You'll never see a piece of money again in your life. Fine. They get the Gezerah, and for 40 years, heard somebody say once, for 40 years and 40 nights. But anyway, but for 40 years, they eat the man. You don't hear a word, shashto. Now it's a whole new generation that grew up. And they're ready now to go into Eretz Yisrael. And they start their journey. They're on their way. And they come to Eretz Edom and they say, can we cut through your land? And they say no. So we have to circle around. And we circle around Moab and Ammon, and we go up to Sichon, and we go through the north over there. And after we're on our way, we almost crossed into Eretz Yisrael right now. Now we're about to go in. And the people complain about the man. But you're never going to see the man again in your life. You ate this for 40 years, and now you're just about to go into Eretz Yisrael. And you're never going to see a piece of man again in your life. And you're complaining again about the man. It's so interesting that just before they're never going to have it again. Okay, so you can argue there's a certain psychological reality. Yeah. When the trip is almost over, that's when the kids start to go crazy in the car, I'm getting out of my. Are we there yet? I don't know how to go. It's like it's almost done. We're almost there. But I don't think that's what's going on over here. Yeah, this is when you're complaining about the man, when you're about to go into Eretz Yisrael and never see the man again. So Yitzchak Isaac Sher and Lekha Sichas Musa, which I have often said in the past, is one of the best Musa Svarim I have ever seen. It's a collection of shmuzim that was given by Rabbi Isaac Sher, who was the Rashiv of Slobodka in Bnei Brak. He was in Europe before that, obviously. And it's just the Musa insights, in my opinion, are brilliant. And I felt like every single shmuz was speaking to me. In fact, I went down to the Slobodka Yeshiva and I bought, I think, 50 or 60 copies of Chelik Aleph that I used to give out to people who having a bar mitzvah. Because I figured, this they didn't get. Nobody got them this. So I was in Bnei Brak a couple of months ago and I went to buy more and they said it's out of print, which is pretty unfortunate. I don't know if I told the story, but I was speaking once in Efrat, and a guy came over to me and says, you spoke here last year. And I enjoyed what you said then, and I enjoyed what you said now. But I have to say, one of the things you did is you mentioned Lekha Sichas Musa by Isaac Sher, and I was so intrigued I went and got a copy, and you're right. Every single shmooze is a gem, is a work of art. It's out of print now, so if anybody out there has a cheshek for printing svarim, everybody's desire to do chesed goes in different directions. And listen, you need people who are involved in Bika Cholim. You need people who are involved in Chevra Kadisha. You need people who care about chinuch, whether it's little children or older children or adults or golden age as I approach that stage, if I'm not already there. Yeah, and there are people whose Taras Mishpacha is their raison d'etre, and other people just making sure people have enough food, money for food and shelter, and which of these is the most important? It's impossible to say. All of these are important. There was a big discussion here in Eretz Yisrael. I don't know if I told the story. I apologize if I did. Yeah. Back in the earlier years, I'm not talking about in the 40s and 50s, but it was either in the 60s or 70s, that people raised money and they bought a Rolls Royce. Now, the Chassan and Kala could ride back and forth to the Chasana. And there was an outcry of materialistic expression. Who needs a Rolls Royce? What a waste of tzibur money. And other people said, no, it's the mitzvah of being mechabed chassan v'kala. Went back and forth. I don't know I'm not taking a position. I'm just telling the story. So, I know it's enough to get me canceled in the cancel culture, but luckily nobody can cancel me. So it's my own podcast. Anyway, but you can't fire me. I quit. Anyway, but so interestingly enough, when they wanted to import this Rolls Royce, they couldn't find. There was obviously no Rolls Royce dealership in Israel. So they got somebody else to agree to become the Rolls Royce dealer. And it's a lot of bureaucratia, is the word we use here in this country, And it really wasn't worth it him for one Rolls Royce, but they convinced him it was a chesed and he agreed to do it. Sof Sipur, the end of the story is that Israel decided to use Rolls Royce engines in their jets. And they contacted Rolls Royce and they said, no, you have to go through our dealer. And this guy suddenly gets handed this multi-million-dollar contract for the Israeli government, So in the contrast of last week, that no deed goes unpunished, no good deed goes unpunished, it shows you a good deed gets rewarded. Yeah. But anyway, so is that the most important thing? But there are people who are mechabed chassan kala. Chesed, it's listed in our list of chasodim. There are certain mitzvahs that people look at, and that's where they're drawn towards, So everybody has something that speaks to them. So if publishing Svarim, I know people like to publish Svarim. Yeah, there was a very wealthy Jewish fellow who was in fact the inspiration for the movie Wall Street. He had a lot of money and he used to give money to libraries. He had a cheshik for libraries, So somebody went to him to try to get money for some kind of Jewish education, and he says, no, I only give to libraries. He says, why is that? He goes, I like the smell of books. So if you do, you might want to, this is where you go. You might want to republish the Leket Sichos Musa because, as I mentioned, I think it is such an important Musa work. That's my opinion. In any event, it's interesting. I've seen people impersonate me. I don't think anyone's ever picked up that phrase in any event, and I think I use it a lot. I'm thinking now, I'm not really sure. I've never tried imitating myself because I do a pretty good Rabbi Orlofsky already. So, anyhow, in any event, so Yitzchak Isaac Sher says like this: they were sitting in the midbar, surrounded by the Ananei HaKavod, drinking from the be'er and eating man. And man was, as is described, lechem abirim. It's the food of angels. Food of angels. The Torah describes it as some sort of, like a cake cooked with honey and oil. It must have been angel food cake. But anyway, it was. I think the Ramban explains it as ruchnius in physical form. That's why there was no waste products that came out of it. There was nothing. There was nothing about it. That was one of the things it says. Lechem klokel. Rashi says is that we don't go to the bathroom. They hadn't gone to the bathroom in 40 years. They had a stack of magazines like this. It was, So we're out here in the man, eating man, drinking from the be'er, under that area kavod, living this supernatural lifestyle. And you want me to go into Eretz Yisrael and live like a person. Be a farmer, eat regular food, go to the bathroom. Yeah. It's a whole different lifestyle. Why would I just jump into that unprepared? Let's see if I can, in fact, manage to eat I don't know if I can. Can I eat regular food and function like a person? That's what the Mizamim said. Give us basa. Give us meat. But they had plenty of meat. Right, but any animal that they shechted, they had to eat as a korban shlomim. And that's korbanos, and korbanos is like mun. It's supernatural food. I want a regular in Parshas Re'eh, right? So the Torah refers to regular meat as basa taiva, chata taiva. Yeah, I have an ongoing, it's called discussion with a couple of friends of mine who are foodies. And they, of course, eat their steaks properly, which is still alive, frankly, bleeding and red, extra, extra rare, and I can't even relate to it. They even eat some dish with actual raw meat in it, which to me is just one of the most horrific things I could possibly imagine. It's like having the raw fish sushi. It's just impossible, you know. I had a student in Or Sameach. He was teaching English in Japan, and his friends took him out to this fancy restaurant. And they take a fish, and they stick it on a pole. It's still alive, and they slice it open, and it's still moving, and you eat it. I mean, that's very fresh fish, you know. He says, I was so grossed out, I couldn't eat it. And as we were leaving, the chef said, "Don't ever come back to my restaurant. You've insulted me." So they like it cooked very very rare. Yeah, I like it where it's cooked, you know, where it looks like it's brown. Might be a little red left to it, but for the most part brown, you know. Depending on the cut of meat, not actually well done, medium well. I've managed to eat medium on occasion. And we had a discussion once with an Israeli. And Israelis, and I'm generalizing here, they make a roast. They don't make a roast like that. You know, they boil it up. They boil it up until it's much falling apart. You know, I have a friend of mine, Shalom Katz, who is a caterer, and he was doing a chasana once, and they were like, spare no expense. So he went out and brought prime rib roasts, and he roasted them till they're just, you know, perfect. And you know, you're running around, you got so many things to take care of, and he gets ready to slice the prime rib, and he can't find it. He's looking around, and he says to his assistant, "Where's the prime rib?" He goes, "Oh, I started to slice it. It didn't look like it was cooked. So I decided to boil it up some more." And there's this giant pot filled with gravy, and all of his prime ribs were boiling up in them. I was loading with him at the time, and I remember he just came in and he started telling the story. He couldn't even finish the story. He put his head down. Anyway, so he says, so they said to him, the foodies, you know, they said, "Why would you eat your meat like that? You know, don't you want it like in like a steak?" So he says, "Why?" He says, "You know, he goes, so I can spend more time chewing. When it's soft, it's easy to eat." "What am I, a lion?" He said. "I am a lion? I need to chew up my animals?" And I was watching this exchange, and there was no way that they could possibly explain to somebody the joy of having a steak and having to chew it up. He's explaining why it's so nice to have a roast that's falling apart that you can just, like, you know, eat it very easily. And I was watching this exchange, thinking to myself, how do you explain the joy of eating a steak? Weistas, that's what they meant when they said basa taiva. Ranja. That's a steak. And you know, my goodness, you know, I mean, when I was in America, give me a moment just to reflect. I used to go to America, and I used to speak. I used to have hundreds and hundreds of people who told me that my talks changed their lives. But that wasn't the main thing. The main thing is I went shopping. I ran out of Folgers. And so my nephew came and brought me 2 jars of Folgers, but I'm already halfway through one of them. By this rate, I have less than a month left. I'll be out of Folgers again. I don't know what I'm going to do. I drink Folgers. Everybody here drinks Taster's Choice, which is basically brown water. I can't, the taste to it. They say Folgers is bitter. It says it's not Starbucks. Starbucks tastes like it's burnt, you know. And this, at least it tastes like you're drinking a cup of coffee. You want to feel like you have a cup of coffee, yeah. But you know, but I would bring back, and some things to do is I'd bring back steaks. I have a son-in-law, you know. He said I gave him one of my package of American steaks, you know. He says he started eating it. He says it was so delicious. I started to cry. Yeah. But I saw that when I was going to buy my family pack of rib steaks. They have this thing called cowboy steaks, like this. You don't have enough meat. You don't have enough meat. When I when I used to travel, you know, in the old days, I would, at times when I had enough points built up, I would be able to take one of my kids, a couple of my kids, or a couple with me to America, you know. So I took one of my married couples to me on one trip. It was in February, and I had a speaking gig in Miami. So we went down to Florida, and wow, they were just blown away. Miami in the wintertime. Rabbi Wine says, you know, he had this Rebbe used to come down to Miami, you know, for the winter. He says, we had a chavrusa, and we're learning in my backyard under the spreading grapefruit tree. And he says to me, you know, this is Gullus, but as Gullus goes, it's not so bad. I had to be very careful because I used to do my Rabbi Wine impersonation, and there were times I couldn't get out of it. I was in it for weeks at a time. So I'm sure you understand what I'm referring to. Some people in this room are old enough to remember back. All right, forget it. Anyway, you get the idea. But anyhow, so we went out to this restaurant left. Farego, I'm forgetting the names, and it was basically a steakhouse, you know, and they all had these like enormous steaks. I was like, I can't eat like that. I'm an old man, you know. Have a little boiled chicken and some prune juice, you know, and I'm done, you know. They were having mixed drinks, you know. They have a guy there with mixing up drinks and bringing out steaks. Big steak. In other words, can I eat basa taiva and still maintain a level of spirituality? Now, what you learn from the Mizavim is, no, they were not able to. It was very hard. That's one of the things that terrified them when the Meraglim came back and said, you can't handle this. It's because you're not going to be able to handle this lifestyle. This requires a better person than you. To be able to eat basa taiva and to be able to maintain it. The story with the Satmar Rebbe, he never slept and he never ate, apparently. Yeah. Yaakov Kamenetsky was going down to Miami. There seems to be a theme here today. Yaakov Kamenetsky was going down to Miami, and the Satmar Rebbe says, "Listen, I have an apartment there. You can use my apartment." It was like a hotel apartment or something. So Rabbi Yaakov comes down, and there's the cleaning lady, and you know, face what she was doing in the room, you know. And so, of course, he's a Slapatka Musarnik, you know. So he says, "Thank you so much for making the room so clean, you know." And she says, "Don't thank me. See that bed? I haven't touched it in weeks. I don't know where that other guy who was here slept, but he never slept here. Satmar Rebbe didn't sleep. The Gabbai tells Bacha, he says, tell the Rebbetzin to send in the Rebbe's lunch. So the boy says to the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe asked for his lunch. So she said, no, he didn't. All the years I'm married to him, he never once asked for food. If I didn't give it to him, he wouldn't eat it all. So the Vilnagoyen used to eat kazayas of bread, kazayas of kibeya, whatever it was, soaked in water, and he'd throw it down into his base of belia so he shouldn't have to taste it, so that he wouldn't have to deal with food. But there are obviously there's a kedusha in food. The Yerushalmi says Yehuda used to save up his money and buy every new fruit that came out because the ta'amim of the peiros show us Tamei Torah. Shabbos, Yantif, Onig Shabbos, Onig Yantif, to be able to have the finest food and enjoy it. Yeah. Ichlu mashmanim shumam takim, says by Rosh Hashanah. Yeah. Eat good meat, drink good wine on the Yom Adin, and maintain that level of kedusha. Yeah. So challenging. It's easy, if you keep yourself in a safe place. I know that's a term that came in since Trump was elected. We need safe places, safe zones, where we don't have anybody challenge us, what we think, what we experience. My mother wanted to go to Orlando for Pesach. I'm pretty sure I told this story already. So we drove down a van of supplies. It turned out that everything that I drove down, I could have bought down there in South Florida. And I could have had it all delivered to the house. And I didn't have to drive down all these things, but okay. Yeah. But we drove down, and we went from New York down to Florida. So that's a long corridor that you have to get down. And we ate dinner in Baltimore because we were supposed to leave at 10 o'clock in the morning. And obviously, give you an idea what time we left, we got to Baltimore for supper. And a number of the participants were like, okay, let's just stay here for the night already. And I knew I had to be there because my mother was coming in, and I wanted to get the house ready, So my son-in-law, Yisrael Meir Urabach, his family is originally from Georgia. And he speaks this language. Everybody from down there is automatically a trucker. 10-4, good buddy. So I look at him. So he says, we'll just drive, we'll get a couple of hours under our belt. Maybe we'll stop in Richmond or something, at least we'll get started. I was like, okay. So they all get onto the van. He starts driving, and I look at him, I go. And so, of course, everybody falls asleep in the van, and he's just trucking. Keep on trucking. About North Carolina, my son wakes up, and he's like, well, where are we? What are we doing in the van? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. So we stopped in a motel someplace in North Carolina. I'm not sure where. I think it was the town of Mayberry. And we spent the night. Everyone took a shower and slept in a bed. Now this wasn't like a Motel 6. This was like a Motel 4 or 3, But everyone was like thrilled. It was like the best night's sleep they ever had. And got up in the morning, got back on the road, and this was great because I knew that if we got stopped by a cop, Yisrael Meir speaks the language. How's it going? Yeah, I'm just trucking down to Florida. Got a bunch of Jews here I'm transporting. Anyway, so we're going down and we're hungry. And someone looked up online in kosher thing, and it said, from Silver Spring till Florida is a kosher desert. So you stop in someplace, and what do you buy? You buy junk. Junk. Eat junk, drink junk. That's all there is. Can't sit down and have any real food, you know. So I remember, I think at the beginning of it, I remember when we were first getting on the road, we stopped at a Target or Walmart and went to the supermarket section with some fruits and vegetables and things. It was like, the only nutrition we had. You know, so to be able to eat the kedusha, to be able to have that sense of what I'm having is kadosh, and maintain the same level of the mun in everything that I eat. That's what they found frightening. And that's the challenge. The challenge is to be able to live as spiritual people in a physical world. And that's what they were afraid of before they went into it. So each time says, share. That's why they complained about the mun, because they're like, you've been babying me. You've been giving me special spiritual food. Can I eat regular food? Am I up to solids? Yeah. So that is our challenge as we go through life, to live the spiritual life in a physical world. To be able to have basar taiva, to be able to have meat and meat byproducts. Nothing but meat and meat byproducts. And I don't know if anybody's coming from Israel, from America to Israel. You want to bring us some American steaks or American frankfurters. They just do them different there. I don't know why. I moved here 32 years ago, and twice in my chicken franks, I found a feather. Twice. Everyone knows that they do not make frankfurters and salami out of the best cuts. But at least in America, they have the decency to grind it up first. You got big chunks. Sometimes you have a salami, the whole thing's just a hoof. But anyway, these are some of the delights that I used to get. I used to get my Folgers coffee, and I would get la choy Chinese noodles. I put in my chicken soup because that's how I grew up. I used to get alphabet noodles. I know noodles are noodles. Why they taste better when they're shaped like letters, I don't know why. I can't tell you. Do I have to spell it out for you? In any event, just keep me in mind. Next time you're having a frankfurter on a regular roll, we don't have frankfurter rolls here either. They made them once in Angels, and I got rid of them. You know, mustard and sauerkraut. Anyway, I'm digressing. I'm talking about those people who eat basar taiva. Yeah, of course, everything I use, the kedusha, the tara. Anyway, so that's the story. That's what we want to talk about this week, and that's it. So if you want to find out more about the show, go to RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can leave a comment, send me an email. I've fallen behind in answering my emails. If you wrote me and I have not answered you in a while, that's only because, I have this little box where the new emails come in. If I don't answer them right away, they sink down, and then I have to scroll down, and new ones keep coming in. And, I feel like that famous comedy routine, Lucy did it in I Love Lucy, Jackie Gleason did it, a number of comics did it, where they're working in a chocolate factory, and the chocolates come by and they're supposed to wrap them up, and then they come faster and faster. That's how I feel sometimes about my emails, and before I get to answer the ones I wanted to answer, And sometimes the emails are easier to answer, like, Rabbi Orlofsky, I love your show. This was so wonderful. Thank you. That's really easy to answer. The other one is, could you explain Tzimtzum and the Kabbalistic concept of creation? I'm like, yeah, give me a sec. I'll get right on it. Anyway, so that's it. You can go to RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can leave comments. You can send emails. Find out if I ever have another upcoming event. And you can sponsor an episode. And in fact, this episode is, I forgot to say at the beginning, this episode is sponsored anonymously by Bob Anonymous. Thank you, Bob. must be hard going through life with a name like that, let me tell you. This guy goes to change his name. The judge says, what's your name? He says, Joe Jerk. He says, okay, I understand why you want to change it, but I have to ask anyway, why do you want to change your name? Because I get made fun of all the time. Every time I meet somebody, they say, hello, Joe. So, Mr. Anonymous, thank you so much. And by the way, this is not the only one he's sponsored. He's sponsored quite a number of them. So just as an act of appreciation, I guess he must have seen the last podcast and heard me ranting and raving. So he says, okay, we appreciate you, okay? So thank you so much, this whole podcast and everybody who watches and gets chizuk from this. And there are quite a few, yeah? All of that is in your schus. Thank you so much for that. And Mitzvah Hashem, anyone who wants to sponsor an episode, you can go and click on the sponsor the episode button. All right, I'm over time. This is Dovid Orlofsky, and this has been the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.